Can we talk about the major item that you were able to agree upon? For example, the decision to expand the membership of the BTC.
Yeah, the directive from our President Duterte, is that the process has to be inclusive. There has to be participation in the peace process. So now that we are in the implementing phase, we decided that one of the ways in which we can be very inclusive is to increase the number of the members of the Bangsamoro Transition Commission, which is going to be tasked with drafting the enabling law that will be submitted to Congress.
Sir, paano po yung distribution? Is it 10 and 11?
Well, I cannot speak on the government side.
But for the MILF?
Well, there is an increase, but I have not talked to my counterpart whether to disclose the exact number. Maybe they will know it later. Better to disclose it now with your concurrence.
Yeah. So the number is going to be increased. As to how many, we will have to wait for the joint statement that we are going to make. But suffice it to say that because we want greater participation, that we have decided, I mean, and the MILF has also agreed that we will increase the number. As to how many, that we'll have to wait until we have the joint statement later.
But was it a difficult decision in the first place on the part of the MILF to agree to add more members?
It's more or less a difficult situation because on the basis of signed document, it is stated that it's going to be 15. 8 coming from the MILF and 7 coming from the government of the Philippines. But on the spirit of improvement and enhancement, it's not a violation of that agreement. So we agreed with government to increase the number of the commissioners of the BTC.
But of course, the expanded BTC would still be chaired by the MILF.
Mm-hmm. That's part of the agreement. Mm-hmm. It would be chaired by the MILF, coming from the MILF.
Yeah, and they will also still have the majority. Mm-hmm. But so we thank the MILF for being very open to enhancing the process, to making it more effective and more participatory. And I think they understand that because their whole struggle has really been to give voice to them and to share the public space so that decisions are made in a more democratic manner. So I think in that spirit, we are very grateful to the MILF that they did make that decision to increase the numbers.
In calling for inclusivity, have you decided kanino kukuhang slots yung, for example, representation to be made available, for example, sa MNLF? Would that come from the government?
From the government numbers will include members from IP communities, from LGUs, from sultanates, the MNLF, and other groups. So that's not been decided on, but that's just to show you where what we're thinking.
How soon will the BTC convene? And tsaka ano yung deadline or time frame for them to produce a new draft?
Mm-hmm. You want to?
Well, there is an outstanding proposal that the BTC should come up with a new Bangsamoro Basic Law within 1 year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good timeline, and we can work on that.
Yeah, so the BGC will have to be up and running very soon, because that process has to get you have to have a draft, then you have to send that to Congress, and we are hoping that it will be passed in a year's time, or even less than a year, because the good thing about the process now is that you have a president who has the political will to make that happen, and you have a Congress, as you've seen, both the Speaker of the House and the Majority Floor Leader were here for the formal launch of the implementing phase. So I think there's a lot of the environment is such that we are hopeful that timeline will be followed.
Clarification lang, 1 year for the BTC to submit a draft to Congress.
No.
Pero hindi pa kasama na ba rin
It can be earlier. It can be earlier.
To submit to Congress.
Yeah, to Congress.
submission lang
The
yan?
sooner the better. To
Yes,
Pero
no.
how about your target when it comes to the ratification talaga? Yung kompleto na.
Well, that's part of the process. It depends on how fast Congress can act on it. Because it has to be passed. The BBL has to be passed by Congress before the ratification. So it depends on how fast Congress can do it.
And of course, the possibility that people will question it before the Supreme Court again.
We don't even want to think of that.
Sir, shoot ko lang kasi yung ibang mga tao may hangover pa sa, sa encounter. Paano yun, sir, moving forward? How are we going to deal with it?
Alin?
Yung sa
Mamasapan.
Mamasapan.
Well, it's part of the whole planning that we have a good communication strategy. And we have yet to discuss that together with our counterpart from government. We need really to come up with a very, very good and comprehensive communication strategy.
Who will chair the BTC pala, sir?
It would be coming from them.
I mean, who from the MIL?
I don't know.
Kayo pa rin ba?
Hindi na kayo?
Most likely, I would not chair the BTC anymore. I have done my part.
So you
And we
meant-
have delivered. And I think on my part, personally, it's already a fulfilling thing for me.
But you look frustrated. How come parang you sound frustrated?
No, I'm not frustrated. We have delivered. We have come up with the BBL. We have so many
have
levels
also.
of engagement, and we have rendered the final report to the Office of the President. So as far as we are concerned, while it did not pass Congress, but we have done our share of the responsibility.
So now it's still up to the government now to deliver that political aspect of it.
And that is the intention, of course, is to deliver an enabling law that will be compliant with the Constitution, compliant with all our laws, and so that's why I'm very happy with the kind of engagement we're having with MNF.
Sir, how do we avoid yung
Excuse me.
yung mga incidents?
Well, we have to understand the process, especially
Ay, Diyos.
and I think the partnership of government.
Yung mic. Kunin ko yung mic. Yung target nyo when it comes to the 2019 or earlier?
Well, it can be earlier because much of the responsibility rests with Congress. The only participation of the MILF is through the BTC, and after that, it's all government responsibility. Of course, we continue to engage government through the BTC, but the responsibility really is up to Congress to do that.
Sir, thank you po. Maraming salamat.
Okay, flight niya sir.
Isa na lang, sige. Balik sa mga. Okay, any other major agenda item that you were able to cover, please?
I think it is, while we are also looking at the legislative track,
Camera no?
while we are looking at the political track, which is the legislation of the BBL, we were also looking at the whole issue of normalization, which is and previous to our meeting today, there had already been some decisions about decommissioning. What do we do with the camps? Some camps, not all. And so we have to have a more or less a holistic view of the entire process. So it's not just really the BBL, although that's very important. There are other parts of the peace process that we have to attend to, and that's part of normalization. People have to get back to their normal lives, and let's not forget that this is about people. Because I come from Mindanao and the president comes from Mindanao, we are very, very cognizant of what people are going through. And so we are focusing on the legislative track and making sure that there is a law, because then we can move forward with full implementation. We are also looking at what happens on the ground, what can be done with the people who have suffered enough.
Sir, kung halimbawa, for some strange reason, ano yung federalism, if ever, then
The Bangsamoro government or you?
parang mo-override.
No, I would not like to think that kind of situation. Right now, the tracks are two. The priority as far as we are concerned is the passage of the BBL. While at the same time, the government will push for the amendment of the Constitution to make the Philippines a federal state from a unitary presidential government. So we are looking at a situation wherein the BBL passes Congress ahead of the effort to amend the
So
Constitution.
it's a priority.
It's a priority as far as we are concerned, and I think that's the thinking of the president. In the campaign promise and even in the SONA, he asked Congress to pass the BBL.
Your level of confidence with the Duterte administration?
Well, if you look at the statement of the president, the statement, especially the acknowledgement of the historical injustices committed against the Moro people, I think that's very historical. That's
He knows it.
yeah, it's a very important statement because man can know his failures because he has wisdom, but to admit them, to acknowledge them, it takes greatness to admit them. So admitting that there is really a historical injustice committed against the Moro people is something very historic, momentous. It's a milestone. And only the president now has the gut to say that.
After 17 years of negotiation?
17 years of negotiation.
It's not just the 17 years of negotiation.
Yeah, including the MNLF, more than 20
What's
years.
started?
It's the 400 years
Correct.
of the colonial history, because this is still part of our colonial history, and we can only really see ourselves as one country, but one state, but many nations. We can only do that if we do the right thing with the Bangsamoro people.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.